Hi and welcome back. In this lesson we will learn how to draw lines on the canvas. So let's begin. First you need to remember that the top left corner is the starting point for all measurements. The horizontal axis, which is the x-axis, goes from this starting point. And so does the vertical axis, which is the y-axis. So let's suppose that we have these coordinates, 300 pixels on the x-axis and 200 pixels on the y-axis. As a result, we will get a point that has the above-mentioned coordinates. To draw a line on the canvas, we need to take several steps. The first step is to search for the canvas tag by its ID. So we need to write this line of the code, which you see on the slide. Go to the script.js file and type in letCanvas equals to document.querySelector, and then we need to specify the ID name of the canvas tag. Copy this ID name and paste it into the code. As I've already mentioned in the first lesson of this section, inside of the canvas tag we have the element called context. In fact, we draw all figures on the context. That's why the second step is to get context. To do this, we need to use a function called getContext. So we have to create a variable called ctx, which is a shorthand of the word context. Then we assign the value of canvas.getContext to it. Finally, in the parentheses, we specify which context we want to use. There are two options, 2D or 3D. Please notice that 2D is wrapped in single quotes. So we type in letCtx equals to canvas.getContext and then we add 2D in the parentheses. Don't forget that the text 2D has to be wrapped in single quotes. The third step is to specify from which point we want to draw a line. In other words, we need to specify x1 and y1 of this point. And of course, we also need to specify up to which point we want to draw the line. So we must specify x2 and y2. Well, the logic is absolutely the same as in real life. When we want to draw a line on paper, we put a pencil at the starting point from which we want to draw a line. So to draw a line on the canvas, we need to put this virtual pencil at the starting point. To do this, we have to write ctx.moveTo and then we specify x1 and y1. As a result, our virtual pencil will take this position. We type in ctx.moveTo. The width of context is 1000 pixels and the height is 600 pixels. So we can use any number from 0 to 1000 pixels for the x-axis and any number from 0 to 600 pixels for the y-axis. Let's make it 200 pixels for x and 50 pixels for y. In real life, if we drew the line on paper, we would move the pencil to the second point. To do this, we need to use a function called line2 and then we specify the coordinates of the second point. As a result, the virtual pencil will draw the line up to the coordinates of the second point. So we type in ctx.line2. Let's make it 600 pixels for x and 300 pixels for y. Save it and refresh the page. And we see nothing. Why is that? Because we created the virtual line, but so far we didn't place it on the canvas. To place it on the canvas, we need to use a function called stroke. As a result, the line becomes visible. So let's type in ctx.stroke. Now we see the line. Here's the starting point, and here's the end point. If we want to put the virtual pencil at the starting point, we need to use a function called closePath. And now the pencil moved back to the initial position. Let's suppose that we want to draw a second line. Here's the starting point. The endpoint of this line has the coordinates x3 and y3. In this case, we need to write ctx.line2, x3, y3. With this line of code, we've just created the virtual line. Now, to make it visible, we need to write ctx.stroke. Alright, let's check this in practice. We type in ctx.closePath and then ctx.line2. Let's make it 600 pixels by x and 100 by y. Finally, we type in ctx.stroke. Save it and let's check it out. Excellent! We've got the second line. So when we call the function closePath, the virtual pencil moved to the starting point of the first line, and then from that point, the new line has been drawn. But what if we want to create a line not from the starting point of the first line, but from the end point of the first line? Well, we don't need this line of code. In this case, the line will be created from the end point of the first line. Okay. Remove this line of code. And this time the second line has been drawn from the end point of the first line. So first we set the virtual pencil at the starting point from which the line had to be drawn. Then we created the first virtual line. After that we made the line visible. Then we created the second line, and also made it visible. I should mention that the context element remembers all the lines that we create. So when we call the stroke function, the context element places all the created lines on the canvas. It means that when we have already created all the lines, we can call the stroke function only once. So remove this line with the stroke function. Save and refresh the page. Excellent! Everything works. Alright, that's all I wanted to tell you in this lesson. In the next one, we will learn how to create rectangles. See you then!